Hello and welcome to my very first YouTube video. If you ended up here, you more than likely have a love of film photography like myself. This is a channel that I'm hoping to use to document my film photography journey, and I hope to take all of you on that journey with me. My name is Josh, I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been shooting film for just about a year and a half now. And in that time, I have grown and learned so much, but I know that there's even more out there for me to learn, and way more photos for me to take. As of right now, I've only taken photos on 35mm film. I haven't really made the leap up to medium format or large format, though that is a little bit of a goal of mine for 2023. After deciding to make this channel, I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to do a monthly retrospective. Every month I do my damnedest to shoot at least 3 rolls of film. So I thought, why not make some videos where I look back on the previous month of shooting and pick my 5 favorite shots from that month. If you haven't guessed it already, that's what this video is about. February is upon us, Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and to show my love and appreciation for film photography, I'm going to break down my 5 favorite photos that I shot in January. I want to break my photos down in terms of their composition, their lighting, and any other techniques that might have been involved, as well as give you any other background on the creation of the photo. So without further ado, let's go take a look at January of 2023. Okay, so first we have this photo of this sculpture that I found in Brooklyn Bridge Park. This was shot on Ilford HP5 with a Ricoh XR-2 and a Hanimex 28mm automatic lens. And this particular photo was shot with a red filter with a 1/125th shutter speed, and I believe it was f4. Now, I had just gotten the red filter a couple days prior, and this was a photo walk in which I was basically trying to test it out and see how to use it, what kind of photos I can get out of it. I had never used a red filter before, but I had heard so many people talk about them and how great it is for black and white photography, so I thought I'd give it a shot. Unfortunately for me, I feel like I need to get a little bit more practice at it. I mean, I think this photo is great, don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily think that it lent itself to needing a red filter. I think that it would have looked just fine without it. Anyway, moving on to the actual compositional technique of this photo. I shot this at an f4, which was about as close to wide open as I could get. The reason I wanted to shoot it close to wide open was because I wanted that shallow depth of field. You'll notice that the structure is in focus while the fence in the background and then the buildings beyond that are even further out of focus. I also want to note that I don't typically take photos of sculptures or things like graffiti. It makes me feel a little icky inside. Like I don't really like taking someone else's artwork and kind of reclaiming it as my own. I know that's not entirely what's happening, but for whatever reason it just leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. So I try not to do this as often as possible. But when I was on my photo walk and I saw this gyroscopic sundial looking thing, I thought, well, maybe this can lend itself to some nice composition. One of the compositional techniques that I look for, or one of the geometric shapes that I look for, are triangles. I urge you all to take a look at photos that you love and see how many of them incorporate triangles into them, because they're all over the place. There's also a pretty common technique in photography called filling the frame, which I also implemented in this photo. Up next, we have a photo of a total stranger. It was shot on Ilford FP4 with a Minolta XG7 and a 50mm lens. So I included this onto the list for one reason, and that is because it kind of taught me a bit of a lesson. I mean, the image itself is fine. We have this right of center rule of thirds framing, which is cool. We have those horizontal hazy fluorescent light bulbs, which is also cool. But you may notice that the leftmost part of the frame is completely white. The reason for that is because when I was dropping this film off, I still had one more frame left. So I asked one of the employees at the lab that I go to regularly to drop off my film, Exposure Therapy in Brooklyn, if I could take a photo of him, just as my last frame in the roll. He gladly obliged. I took the photo, and like an idiot, I don't want to say idiot, like someone who makes mistakes like any other person, I opened the back of the camera without rewinding it. It was the first time I had ever done that in my entire life. Can't believe I did it, still to this day. I like to think that I'm not going to make that mistake again, but I'll probably make that mistake again. I immediately closed it thinking, well, there goes half of my roll, unusable. It was also my first time shooting FP4, so I was kind of bummed about that. And here's a little bit of the silver lining, and it's this photo right here. This was the last photo on the roll that was actually still semi-usable. I mean, I don't even want to say semi-usable, it's totally usable. It's a good photo. And I kind of choose to look at that little white strip on the left side as a bit of a reminder that even in the darkest of times, happy accidents do occur, and here's just an example of that. I'm going to try to use it as a remedy for the anxiety that comes with shooting 35mm film or film in general, to just kind of keep calm, and things might work out and things might not work out. Try not to get too attached to the things that you photograph. Also, side note, I'm just happy that I nailed the focus on the hat there, because I was shooting wide open, and I was nearing the end of the roll, and I was trying to catch the subway, so I took this in a little bit of a tizzy. Up next, we have a photo of a bunch of windows. I saw these somewhere in Brooklyn, and I shot them on Ilford FP4 with a Minolta XG7 and a 50mm lens. One of my favorite compositional techniques to implement as often as I can is repetition and pattern. It's not something I feel I'm able to do that often, but when I get it just right, I feel like it lends itself to some really unique photos. Because when you think about it, patterns, they offer an order in a sort of chaotic world. There's something fundamentally pleasing about patterns and repetition. I mean, think of your favorite pop songs. We like it when we know what to expect. With this photo, I found myself composing with vertical, horizontal, and diagonal lines. And I normally find in most cases that repetition is something that calms the viewer, but this photo, it's an image that's equally calming but has this air of metropolitanism to it, kind of like a bit of a Judge Dredd 1984 kind of vibe, you know, where the windows just seem a little bit too uniform for my liking. But regardless, it goes on my top 5 for the month. Alright, up next we have a self-portrait. This was taken also on Ilford HP5 with a Ricoh XR-2 and a 50mm lens. In the basement of my apartment that I'm in right now, we have this big empty room, and I try to use it as a photography studio whenever I'm feeling frisky. So one night I was alone and I wanted to do some photography stuff, so I thought, hey, why not take some self-portraits? Here are a couple more self-portraits from that session that I did. I like this photo mainly because it's not so often that I get to see myself as mysterious. The way I shot this was just by using an LED panel that I sent way up high and shot straight down, essentially the opposite of underlighting, and just positioning my body in such a way where the brim of the hat was causing the shadow to obscure my eyes. To me, this is a photo that I like regardless of whether I'm the one in it, just because it's something that invites questioning. I feel like it's a photo that asks a lot of questions without offering any sort of answer. And personally, I like that. Last but not least, we have a photo of a barber shop. This photo was taken on Ilford FP4 in a Minolta XG7 with a 50mm lens. It's a photo of a barber shop that's in a little town way upstate called Pine Plains, New York. I was up there with my girlfriend, and we were taking Christmas photos with her family. And the location where we were taking photos with Santa just happened to be right next to this barbershop. I love the sign of the barbershop. I love the little spinny blue and red barber pole. I don't even know what those things are for, but I love that it's in the photo. I love the bench with the snow on it. I love all the other signs for the other businesses in the background that you could see. I love the sharpness of the barbershop sign. I also love that hazy glow that I get whenever I shoot with the Minolta. There's no filter applied to that. That's just, this lens just naturally kind of blooms the highlights a little bit. Here's another example of that.
Wow. 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 Wow.
There's nothing too striking about the composition of this, and I don't mean to keep harping on the compositional elements of the photos that I take. Not every photo needs to be, I don't know, compositionally interesting, especially if it's something that evokes any sort of emotion out of you. This is one that just evokes emotion out of me. Emotion is definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration when looking at, judging, analyzing, examining a photo, just as much as composition or lighting. And the reason that I personally love this photo were the feelings associated with it. Except that's not actually entirely true, because on that day when we were taking those holiday photos, and after I had snapped a photo of this barbershop, the owner had come out at one point and complained that my car was parked too close to his car, even though there was like a 2-foot gap between my front bumper and his rear bumper. And also, there was no one parked in front of him. He could have easily pulled out straight ahead and not had to deal with my car behind him. He came up to me with this tough guy attitude, and he was like, "Is that your car parked behind me?" And I said, "Yeah, that's my car." And he said, "Why you parked so close behind me?" And I was like, "I don't know. That's just kind of the way we do things." I mean, I'm from the city. This guy is all the way up north. He doesn't know. He doesn't know shit. Anyway, everything other than that interaction with the barbershop man was very pleasant. And that's why I love this photo so much. And there you have it. Those are my 5 favorite photos that I took in January of 2023. I may have also cheated a little bit. Some of those were taken at the tail end of December, which astute observers will have realized. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how I evolve in 2023 in terms of my photography and otherwise. 2022 was a big year. I took a lot of leaps and bounds in terms of my film photography and analog knowledge, as well as my technical abilities. But like I said at the start, I know that there's so much more out there for me to learn and so much more for me to try, and I'm very excited to kind of take that journey with all of you. So if you'd like to join me on that journey, go ahead, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be posting videos here whenever I can, but hopefully I can keep doing the sort of monthly recap. I do want to keep that up. So yeah, feel free to subscribe to this channel, and feel free to reach out with any comments, questions, or concerns. You can go to my website down below, and you can find all of my photography there if you'd like. I'm excited to see what this year and what this channel has to offer. So, until the next one, I'll see y'all later. Stop this. Stop this. Stop this.